The diplomatic vessel New Sol moved through the dark space between stars. Inside the ship, Ambassador Jiwan stood at the viewing window and watched the distant lights of alien ships. Today would change everything for humanity. After 300 years of reaching toward the stars, humans were finally meeting their galactic neighbors. Captain Do-hyun walked up behind her. His uniform was clean and pressed, but Jiwan could see the worry in his eyes. The New Sol carried only basic defensive weapons. They had come in peace hoping to join a civilized galaxy. "Ambassador, we will reach the Galactic Council station in 2 hours," Do-hyun said quietly. "My crew is ready for anything." Jiwan nodded but did not turn away from the window. "I hope we will not need to be ready for anything except talking, Captain." In the science section of the ship, Dr. Minho was busy preparing his files. As the chief xenobiologist, he would be recording everything about their first contact with alien species. His equipment was simple, but effective. Cameras, scanners, and translation devices filled his laboratory. Dr. Minho had studied every piece of information humans had gathered about the galaxy. Radio signals, probe data, and long-range observations had taught them much. The galaxy was full of intelligent life. Some species had technology far beyond human understanding. Others seemed to have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. But something worried Dr. Minho about what they had learned. The radio signals they intercepted often spoke of conquest, tribute, and submission. Very few messages talked about cooperation or friendship between different species. The Galactic Council station appeared on their screens. It was massive, larger than any human city. Ships from dozens of different species moved around it like insects around a bright light. Some ships were elegant and curved like works of art. Others were dark and covered with weapons that could destroy planets. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "They are giving us docking instructions." The voice that came through their speakers was translated by their computers. It sounded cold and unfriendly. "Human vessel, you will dock at Bay 779. You will bring no more than 5 representatives. You will carry no weapons. Violation of these rules will result in immediate destruction." Ambassador Jiwan looked at Captain Do-hyun. They both understood the message clearly. The Galactic Council was not welcoming them as friends. They were being treated like a potential threat that needed to be controlled. The docking bay was enormous. Hundreds of different alien ships were parked in neat rows. The New Sol looked tiny compared to most of them. As they walked through the station corridors, Jiwan and her team saw their first aliens face to face. The Vorthak were large and covered in dark scales. They wore military uniforms and carried weapons openly. Their eyes were cold when they looked at the humans. Some Vorthak pointed at them and made sounds that the translation devices could not understand, but the tone was clearly mocking. The Nexari were different. They were tall and thin with pale skin and large eyes. They watched everything carefully and took notes on small devices. When they looked at humans, it was like scientists studying interesting animals. Dr. Minho quietly recorded everything he saw. The station was beautiful but felt wrong somehow. The corridors were built for many different species, but smaller aliens stayed out of the way of larger ones. Some species wore collars or chains. Others had marks on their skin that looked like brands. "This is not what I expected," Dr. Minho whispered to Ambassador Jiwan. "Stay alert and keep recording," she replied softly. The council chamber was a huge dome filled with floating platforms. Each platform held representatives from different species. The humans were given a small platform near the back, far from the center where the most important members sat. Council leader Thexmore was a massive Vorthak with scars covering his face. His platform was at the very center of the chamber. When he spoke, his voice boomed through translation speakers. "We have called this session to examine the species called humans. They claim to come in peace from a small world in the outer regions. They request membership in our council." General Vakthul stood on his platform. He was even larger than the council leader and wore armor covered with metals. "These humans are weak. They have only one world with basic technology. Their ships carry few weapons. Why should we waste time with such a primitive species?" Murmurs of agreement came from many platforms. Ambassador Jiwan felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was exactly what they had feared. Honored Council, Jiwan said, activating her translation device. Humanity seeks only friendship and cooperation. We offer our knowledge, our resources, and our help to build a better galaxy for all species. General Vakthul made a sound that might have been laughter. Friendship, cooperation. These are words for the weak. The galaxy is ruled by strength. What strength do humans possess? We possess the strength to choose peace over war, Jiwan replied. We possess the wisdom to seek understanding instead of conquest. This brought more laughter from the Vorthak platforms. Even some of the other species seemed amused by her words. Council leader Thexmore raised one massive hand for silence. The humans will be granted limited membership. They may trade in designated areas. They may establish colonies on approved worlds. They will pay tribute to the Council for this privilege. Dr. Minho felt his blood turn cold. Tribute. That was just another word for slavery. What kind of tribute? Ambassador Jiwan asked carefully. Raw materials from your colonies. Labor for council projects. Military service when required, Thexmore replied. Standard terms for all new members. The session continued for hours. Humans were assigned mining rights to barren asteroids in dangerous regions. They were given permission to build colonies on dead worlds that no other species wanted. Every agreement favored the established powers. As they returned to the new Sol, the human delegation was quiet. They had achieved their goal of making contact with galactic civilization, but the civilization they found was not what they had hoped for. Captain, Ambassador Jiwan said as the ship prepared to depart, send a priority message to Earth. Tell them we have made contact. Tell them we have been accepted into the Galactic Council. Captain Dohyun nodded. What else should I tell them? Ambassador Jiwan looked back at the massive station growing smaller in their rear displays. Ships moved around it like predators circling prey. Tell them to prepare for disappointment. The galaxy is not ready for peace. As the new Sol jumped into hyperspace to begin its long journey home, none of the humans noticed the small Nexari surveillance ship following them. Inside that ship, Intelligence Chief Keldana reviewed the recordings of their visit. Interesting, she said to her assistant. These humans speak of peace, but their eyes show intelligence. They accept our terms too easily. Most species fight or beg. These humans simply listen and agree. Should we be concerned? Asked her assistant. Keldana studied the human faces on her screen. Perhaps. Send agents to monitor their colonies. I want to know everything about this species that chooses peace. In my experience, those who choose not to fight often know how to fight very well. The new Sol disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying humanity's first taste of galactic civilization back to Earth. Behind them, the great powers of the galaxy returned to their business of exploitation and control, never imagining that they had just made their greatest mistake. They had mistaken human wisdom for human weakness. Soon, they would learn the difference. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. The promises of cooperation and friendship had turned into something much darker. On mining stations across the Outer Rim, humans worked under conditions that grew worse each. Tight mining supervisor. Kyung floated in his work suit outside the asteroid processing station in the Kepler system. Around him, dozens of human miners cut into the rock with plasma torches. The work was dangerous and the quotas were impossible, but the Vorthak overseers demanded more every month. Supervisor Kyung to all teams, he spoke into his comm unit. Slow down on Section 7. The support beams are showing stress fractures. The reply came from Overseer Groth, a massive Vorthak who commanded the station. Humans will work faster, not slower. The Empire needs those minerals today, not tomorrow. Kyung watched his workers through his helmet display. They were exhausted. Many had been working 18-hour shifts for weeks. The safety equipment was old and breaking down. He had filed dozens of reports asking for better conditions, but every request was denied. Overseer Groth, my people need rest. The equipment needs maintenance. If we push too hard, someone will die. Groth's laughter came through the comm system. Dead humans can be replaced. Lost minerals cannot. Work continues. On the agricultural world of New Busan, farmer Sujin stood in her fields watching Nexari inspectors load trucks with grain. The harvest had been good this year, better than anyone expected. But the inspectors were taking almost everything. Please, Sujin said to Inspector Veltak. My people need food for the winter. Take half the harvest, but leave us enough to survive. Inspector, Veltak did not look at her. His pale eyes remained focused on his data pad as he calculated the weight of each truck. The collective requires tribute of 90%. This is stated clearly in your colony contract. 90% will leave us starving, Sujin replied. Last year it was 70%. The year before was 60%. Tribute increases as colonies become more productive, Veltak said coldly. This encourages maximum effort from subject species. Subject species. The words hit Sujin like a physical blow. Humans were not members of the Galactic Council. They were subjects to be managed and controlled. Around the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of human worlds. Resources were stripped away. Working conditions grew harsher. Any complaints were met with threats of orbital bombardment. Captain Do-hyun now commanded a small patrol fleet of 5 human ships. They were supposed to protect human colonies and trade routes, but their requests for help from the Council Defense Force were always denied. His newest assignment had brought him to the edge of human space. 3 colonies had sent distress signals reporting pirate attacks, but as Do-hyun studied the evidence, something did not make sense. Communications Officer Hana, show me those attack recordings again, he said from his command chair. The holographic display showed burning buildings and fleeing civilians. The attacking ships moved in perfect formation. Their weapons were military grade, not the random collection of stolen equipment that real pirates usually carried. Sir, reported Tactical Officer Dongwu, I have analyzed the attack patterns. These ships knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. They targeted communication arrays first, then power stations, then civilian shelters. Do-hyun nodded grimly. Pirates want to steal things. These attackers wanted to send a message. What kind of message? Asked Communications Officer Hana. That humans are not safe anywhere, Do-hyun replied. These are not pirates. These are military units made to look like pirates. Over the following weeks, Captain Do-hyun's small fleet responded to more distress calls. Each attack followed the same pattern. Well-organized forces would strike human settlements, cause maximum terror, then disappear before help could arrive. When Do-hyun requested military support from the Council, he was told that budget constraints made assistance impossible. On Titan Station, Dr. Minho worked late into the night in his research laboratory. Officially, he was studying alien biology to help humans adapt to different worlds. Unofficially, he was documenting a much darker pattern. His computer screen showed a map of human space. Red dots marked locations where colonists had disappeared. Yellow dots showed sites of pirate attacks. Green dots indicated where tribute demands had increased beyond sustainable levels. Dr. Minho had been receiving encrypted messages from human scientists across the galaxy. Dr. Yoon-hee on the mining world of New Daegu reported that Vorthok forces were mapping human settlements far from any mineral deposits. Dr. Shokman on the farming planet of New Mokpo had discovered surveillance satellites, monitoring crop yields and population centers. Most troubling were the reports from Dr. Young-soo on the research station at Proxima Centauri. Nexari scientists had been asking detailed questions about human biology, reproduction rates, and genetic diversity. They wanted to know how quickly humans could recover from population losses. They are not just exploiting us, Dr. Minho whispered to himself as he studied the data. They are preparing for something much worse. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. The encryption signature showed it came from Ambassador Jiwon on Earth. Dr. Minho activated the secure channel. Doctor, I have been reviewing reports from across human space. Jiwon's voice was tired but determined. What you have sent me confirms our worst fears. The Council is not treating humanity as a member species. They are treating us as a resource to be managed until we are no longer useful. What do we do? Dr. Minho asked. We prepare, Jiwan replied. Quietly, carefully, but we prepare. Back in the Kepler system, mining supervisor Kyung's worst fears came true. The overworked support beam in Section 7 finally cracked. Miner, Jaewon was caught in the collapse, his suit torn open by falling rocks. He died before rescue teams could reach him. Kyung stood over Jaewon's body in the station medical bay. The young man had been only 23 years old. He had a wife and daughter back on New Seoul Colony. Now they would never see him again. This could have been prevented, Kyung said to Overseer Groth. I warned you the beam was failing. Groth shrugged his massive shoulders. Accidents happen. Resume mining operations. We need time to repair the section, to make it safe. Mining continues now. Dead humans can be replaced. Kyung felt something change inside him at those words. For 3 years, humans had accepted abuse and exploitation because they believed patience would lead to better treatment. But patience was being mistaken for weakness. On New Busan, Farmer Sujin watched children crying as their mothers tried to stretch the remaining food supplies. The Nexari had taken so much that families would be eating 1 meal a day, just to survive until the next harvest. Sujin activated her personal communication device and sent a message to every human colony in the sector. They are starving our children while calling it tribute. How much more will we accept before we say enough? Captain Do-hyun received intelligence reports that made his blood run cold. The pirate attacks were increasing. More human colonies were going silent. The Council Defense Force was being positioned around human space, not to protect human worlds, but to contain them. From his command ship, Do-hyun sent an encrypted message to Earth. They are not planning to live with us. They are planning to replace us. On Titan Station, Dr. Minho compiled his final report. 3 years of data showed a clear pattern. Humanity was being systematically weakened, isolated, and prepared for something that looked very much like extermination. He encrypted the files and prepared to send them to Earth. But before he could transmit, his computer received a priority message from Ambassador Jiwan. All human stations and colonies, this is Ambassador Jiwan speaking on Emergency Channel 7. I have just received word from the Council. They consider human complaints about working conditions and tribute levels to be signs of rebellion. They have authorized what they call corrective measures to remind us of our place in the galactic order. Dr. Minho felt ice forming in his stomach. Corrective measures meant military action. All human personnel should prepare for the possibility that our peaceful approach has failed. Jiwan continued. The galaxy does not want us as partners. They want us as slaves. And when we are no longer useful as slaves, they will want us gone entirely. The transmission ended. Dr. Minho sat alone in his laboratory, surrounded by evidence of humanity's coming destruction. Outside his window, the stars looked cold and hostile. For 3 years, humans had chosen patience over anger, diplomacy over violence, hope over fear. But the galaxy had mistaken their restraint for inability to fight back. Soon, very soon, they would learn how wrong they had been. The colony ship had taken 2 years to reach New Incheon. 400,000 humans had made the journey across the void to build a new home on the edge of known space. They had chosen a world far from the main shipping lanes, hoping distance would mean freedom. Engineer Yoonbi stood on the observation deck of the city's central tower, watching the sunrise paint the alien sky in shades of purple and gold. Below her, New Incheon spread out like a jewel. Farms and factories, schools and hospitals, all built by human hands in just 5 years. Her daughter Minji pressed against the window beside her. At 8 years old, Minji had never seen Earth. New Incheon was the only home she had ever known. Mama, why are those big ships coming? Minji asked, pointing at the sky. Yoonbi's blood turned to ice. 3 massive Vorthak battleships were entering the atmosphere. Their hulls were dark against the morning sky, bristling with weapons that could level cities. Colonial Administrator Taiwu's voice echoed through the city's communication system. All citizens, this is an emergency announcement. Vorthak military forces are demanding immediate compliance with Council Order 779. All human children between the ages of 6 and 16 must report to designated collection points for transport to Council educational facilities. Yunbi grabbed Minji's hand. Educational facilities was a lie. Everyone knew the Council used children from conquered species as slaves in their factories and mines. The lucky ones lived long enough to become soldiers for the Empire. "Mama, what does that mean?" Minji asked, her voice small and frightened. "It means we need to find somewhere safe," Yunbi replied, leading her daughter away from the window. Throughout the city, parents were having the same conversation. In the government building, Administrator Taiwu faced the Vorthak delegation. Admiral Vorthak stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scarred face showing no emotion as he delivered his demands. "The Council has determined that human children require proper education in galactic civilization," Admiral Vorthak said. "They will be taken to facilities where they can serve the Empire in useful ways." "These are our children," Taiwu replied, keeping his voice steady despite his fear. "They belong with their families." Admiral Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. "Human families have no rights in this matter. Your species exists to serve the Empire. Your children will serve more effectively if they are trained from a young age." "We refuse," Taiwu said quietly. The Admiral's expression did not change. "Refusal is not acceptable. You have 1 hour to comply. If the children are not delivered to our transport ships, we will take corrective action." Taiwu activated the city's emergency communication system. "Citizens of New Incheon, we face a terrible choice. The Vorthak demand our children. As your elected leader, I say we will not give them up. Prepare for the worst." Across the city, families made desperate decisions. Some parents tried to flee to the wilderness with their children. Others hid in underground shelters and maintenance tunnels. A few gathered in the central square, holding their children close and refusing to run. Engineer Yunbi knew the maintenance systems better than anyone. She led Minji through service corridors toward the deep tunnels beneath the power plant. Other families followed her, trusting her knowledge to keep them safe. "If we stay quiet, we can wait this out," Yunbi whispered to the group. "The Council will not waste time searching every tunnel." She was wrong. Admiral Vorthak stood on his command ship and watched the human city through surveillance feeds. No children had been delivered to the transport ships. The deadline had passed. "Admiral, we are detecting human life signs in underground locations throughout the city," reported his tactical officer. "They choose to resist," Admiral Vorthak said. "Begin orbital bombardment. Target all population centers. Make an example that the entire galaxy will remember." The first plasma beam struck the central government building. Administrator Taiwu was vaporized along with everyone inside. The massive tower collapsed in seconds, crushing the families who had gathered in the square below. Yunbi felt the ground shake above her. Emergency lights flickered in the maintenance tunnel. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the concrete walls. "Mama, what is that noise?" Minji asked. Before Yunbi could answer, a plasma beam punched through the street above them. The tunnel filled with smoke and falling debris. Yunbi threw herself over her daughter as concrete chunks crashed around them. The bombardment continued for 3 days. The Vorthak ships took turns firing, ensuring that every building in New Incheon was reduced to rubble. They targeted hospitals, schools, factories, and farms with equal precision. When the plasma beams finally stopped falling, New Incheon was gone. Where a thriving city had stood, only burning ruins remained. Of the 400,000 humans who had called it home, fewer than 50,000 crawled from the wreckage. Yunbi emerged from the collapsed tunnel after 2 days of digging through debris. Her left arm was broken, and burns covered half her face. In her right hand, she clutched Minji's favorite toy, a small stuffed bear that was now black with soot. Minji had not survived the tunnel collapse. Yunbi stood in the ruins of her city, surrounded by the bodies of her neighbors and friends. The Vorthak ships had departed, their message delivered. Any species that refused to obey the Council would face the same fate. But Admiral Vorthak had made a critical mistake. He had ordered the bombardment to be broadcast across the galaxy, as a warning to other species. Every detail of the massacre was recorded and transmitted to every corner of known space. The signals reached human colonies on dozens of worlds. They reached the patrol ships commanded by Captain Do-hyun. They reached the research stations where Dr. Minho studied alien biology. Most importantly, they reached Earth. In the war room beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Hajin watched the footage, in complete silence. His staff stood around the conference table, their faces pale with shock and rage. On the main screen, the burning ruins of New Incheon told the story of humanity's place in the galactic order. The recording showed Admiral Vorthak's final transmission to the galaxy. Let this be a lesson to all species. The Council's authority cannot be questioned. Resistance will be met with complete destruction. Fleet Admiral Hajin rose from his chair. The room was so quiet that everyone could hear him breathing. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. Gentlemen, for 7 years we have pursued a policy of peaceful coexistence with the galactic powers. We have accepted their insults, their tribute demands, and their treatment of our people as slaves. We hoped that patience would earn us respect. Turn to face the screen showing New Incheon's ruins. Today we learned that patience is interpreted as weakness. Peace is seen as cowardice. They believe humans cannot fight because we choose not to fight. Admiral Hajin walked to his command console and placed his hand on a secure scanner. I am authorizing the implementation of Contingency Omega. All reserve fleets are to be activated immediately. All deep space construction projects are to be revealed. All research into advanced weapons systems is to be declassified. Around the table, his staff began entering authorization codes into their terminals. Lights changed from red to green as systems that had been hidden for years came online. Sir, asked his chief of staff, what are our rules of engagement? Admiral Hajin looked at the image of Engineer Yunbi standing in the ruins, holding her dead daughter's toy. The rules are simple. The galaxy wanted to see human wrath. They are about to get their wish. Across human space, hidden shipyards began launching vessels that had been built in secret. Space stations disguised as research facilities revealed their true purpose as military command centers. Scientists who had claimed to study agriculture and medicine activated laboratories filled with weapons that could remake the galaxy. Captain Do-hyun received new orders and coordinates that led him to a system he had never heard of. When his ship dropped out of hyperspace, he found himself looking at the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Dr. Minho's research took on new meaning as biological warfare protocols were activated. The peaceful doctor who had wanted to understand alien life now prepared to end it. On the ruins of New Incheon, Engineer Yunbi held her daughter's toy and made a promise to the smoking sky. You took everything from us because you thought we could not fight back. Now you will learn what humans do when you hurt our children. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The age of human patience was over. The age of human wrath was about to begin. 2 weeks after the massacre at New Incheon, the galaxy discovered that humanity had been preparing for war while smiling at diplomatic meetings. The first sign was not an invasion or a battle. It was the lights going out. On the Vorthak military base at Kronos Station, Base Commander Thekvar was reviewing patrol reports when the power failed. Emergency lighting flickered on, then died. Life support systems began shutting down one by one. What is happening? Thekvar demanded from his command center. Chief Engineer Bakhtel ran diagnostics on his failing systems. Sir, the main power grid is collapsing. The fusion reactors are shutting down safely, but all the control systems are malfunctioning. Sabotage? Thekvar asked. Unknown, sir. The humans who maintain our systems reported to work this morning as usual. They are still at their posts trying to fix the problems. What Thekvar did not know was that those human maintenance workers had been placing tiny devices in critical systems for 3 years. The devices were so small that security scans could not detect them. They had waited patiently for activation. Signals from Earth. Engineer Yunbi stood in the ruins of New Incheon, holding a small transmitter. Her face was scarred from the bombardment. but her eyes burned with cold purpose. She pressed the activation button. Across 3 star systems, power grids began failing. Communication networks crashed. Life support systems on military bases started breaking down. The failures looked random, but they were perfectly planned. Captain Do-hyun received his new orders while his patrol fleet was investigating a distress call from a Nexari trade station. The station's cargo holds were full of goods stolen from human colonies over the past 5 years. All ships, this is Captain Do-hyun. He spoke into his communication system. We have new mission parameters. Activate stealth systems and prepare for Ghost Protocol. His officers looked confused. They had never heard of Ghost Protocol. Sir, asked Navigator Bora, what are our targets? Everything that keeps them strong, Do-hyun replied. Supply convoys, communication relays, fuel depots. We are going to make them weak the same way they made us weak. The human ships vanished from all sensors. New stealth technology made them invisible to radar, heat sensors, and gravitational detectors. They had become ghosts that could strike anywhere without warning. Dr. Minho worked in a laboratory hidden deep inside an asteroid near Titan. Around him, other human scientists prepared biological weapons that could target specific alien species. The weapons were not designed to kill, but to make fighting impossible. The Vorthak pathogen is ready for deployment, reported Dr. Suman. It will cause severe weakness and fever, but no permanent damage. What about the Nexari version? Doctor, Minho asked. Complete immune system disruption for approximately 6 months, replied Dr. Guman. They will be too sick to coordinate their military operations. Dr. Minho stared at the vials containing humanity's biological arsenal. 3 years ago, he had been a peaceful researcher who wanted to understand alien life. Now he was preparing to wage biological warfare against species that had murdered human children. Deploy both pathogens through the water supplies on their main military worlds, he ordered. Begin with the systems that participated in the new Incheon massacre. Fleet Admiral Hajin stood in the command center of the Righteous Fury, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around him, displays showed the positions of every human military unit in the galaxy. What the aliens saw as scattered research stations and patrol ships was actually a perfectly coordinated war machine. Admiral, reported Communications Officer Da-hyun, Ghost Fleet Alpha has successfully destroyed 17 Vorthak supply convoys. Ghost Fleet Beta has eliminated 12 Nexari communication relays. No human casualties reported. Status of the infrastructure attacks? Hajin asked. Power grids are down on 43 military installations. Fuel refineries have stopped production on 8 worlds. Food distribution networks are collapsing across the Nexari central systems. Admiral Hajin nodded. This was not the kind of war the galaxy expected. Human forces were not trying to conquer territory or destroy enemy fleets. They were targeting the foundation that made civilization possible. On the Vorthak fortress world of Keth Prime, General Vakthul discovered that his mighty war machine was falling apart. His battleships were running out of fuel because the refineries had stopped working. His soldiers were getting sick from biological weapons they could not detect. His communication systems could not reach other military commanders. How can humans do this to us? General Vakthul roared at his staff. They have inferior technology and smaller ships. Intelligence Officer Dreknor brought him reports from across the Empire. Sir, the humans are not fighting us directly. They are destroying everything we need to fight each other. Our fleets are stranded. Our supply lines are broken. Our computer networks are infected with viruses. General Vakthul smashed his fist on the conference table. Then we will use what ships we have to destroy their worlds. We will make them pay for this resistance. Sir, we cannot find their fleets. Our sensors show nothing. It is as if human ships have become invisible. Captain Do-hyun's ghost ships struck another Nexari convoy carrying weapons to be used against human colonies. The merchant ships never saw the attack coming. Human vessels appeared from nowhere, disabled the escorts, and downloaded the cargo manifests before vanishing again. But Do-hyun was not stealing the weapons. He was broadcasting the contents of each cargo ship across the galaxy. The shipments revealed decades of slavery, genocide, and exploitation that the Council had hidden from smaller species. "Captain," reported Tactical Officer Dongwu, "we have intercepted another shipment of Zilani children being transported to Nexari labor camps. The Zilani were a peaceful species that had been conquered 50 years earlier. Their children were used as slaves in dangerous factories because their small size made them useful for detailed work. Change of plans," Captain Doyun said. "We are not just taking their cargo manifests. We are taking the children home." The human fleet materialized around the Nexari convoy. This time, they did not vanish after downloading data. They boarded. The ships freed the Zilani children and left the Nexari crews floating in escape pods. Dr. Minho received reports that his biological weapons were working perfectly. Forthak military bases were reporting 70% of their personnel too sick to perform duties. Nexari fleets were drifting powerless because their crews could not operate the ships. But something bothered Dr. Minho about the effectiveness of the weapons. They worked too well, as if human scientists understood alien biology better than the aliens understood it themselves. "Dr. Suman," he called to his assistant, "how long have we been studying Vorthak and Nexari biology?" 7 years, sir. Since we first made contact with the Galactic Council." 7 years of peaceful research, Dr. Minho said quietly. 7 years of asking questions and collecting samples for scientific purposes. He realized the truth. Humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they met the galactic powers. While aliens saw weakness and submission, humans had been learning everything they needed to know to destroy their enemies. Engineer Yunbi activated more devices hidden throughout the galaxy. Fusion reactors shut down safely but completely on. Military installations, water purification systems stopped working in alien cities. Transportation networks ground to a halt as traffic control computers crashed. The galaxy was learning that humans had built and maintained most of the infrastructure that kept civilization running. When humans decided to stop maintaining those systems, everything began to fall apart. On Earth, news broadcasts showed the results of humanity's unleashed wrath. Alien military forces were collapsing not from direct attacks, but from the systematic destruction of everything that supported them. "The galaxy called our desire for peace a sign of weakness," announced Ambassador Jiwan from the United Nations building. "Today they learned that we chose not to fight. We were never unable to fight." Fleet Admiral Hajin watched reports flowing in from across human space. Alien fleets were stranded without fuel. Military bases were powerless and dark. Communication networks that had connected the galaxy for thousands of years were silent. "Phase 1 is complete," he announced to his staff. "The enemy can no longer coordinate their forces or supply their military. Begin Phase 2. "What are our orders for Phase 2, sir?" asked his chief of staff. Admiral Hajin looked at the tactical display showing the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Ghost ships that had been invisible were now revealing themselves. The aliens would finally see the true size of humanity's military power. "We stop hiding," Admiral Hajin said. "It is time for them to see what they created when they decided to murder our children." What terrified the galactic powers most was not the size of human fleets or the power of their weapons. It was the realization that humans had been planning this war for 7 years while shaking hands and signing peace treaties. Ambassador Jiwan stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, but this time she was not alone. Representatives from 37 species stood with her, all of them former victims of Council oppression who had joined humanity's rebellion. "Honored Council," Jiwan said, her voice carrying across the great chamber, "you called our mercy weakness. You mistook our patience for acceptance. You believed our desire for peace meant we could not wage war." Council leader Thexmore tried to maintain his authority, but his voice shook with fear. "The Council demands that humans cease their terrorist attacks and surrender for judgment." "Terrorist attacks?" Jiwan laughed coldly. "We have not targeted a single civilian. We have not destroyed a single hospital or school. We have simply stopped maintaining the systems that allowed you to oppress the galaxy." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of galactic civilization. Power grids were failing. Communication networks were dark. Supply chains had collapsed. Military fleets drifted powerless in space. This is what happens when the people you enslaved decide they no longer wish to serve you, Jiwan continued. For generations you ruled through fear and violence. Today you discover that your entire civilization depended on the goodwill of those you oppressed. The siege of Vorthak Prime had begun 3 days earlier. Human fleets surrounded the capital, world of the Vorthak Empire, but they did not attack. Instead, they broadcast the testimonies of survivors from New Incheon across every communication channel in the system. Captain Do-hyun commanded the lead squadron from his ship, the New Incheon Memorial. His crews had painted the names of massacre, victims on their hulls. Every human ship carried the memory of those who had died. All Vorthak forces, this is Captain Do-hyun of the Human Liberation Fleet. He transmitted on all frequencies. We are not here to conquer your world. We are here to deliver a message. The message was simple but devastating. Human ships played recordings of Admiral Vorthak ordering the bombardment of New Incheon. They showed footage of burning children and families crushed in collapsing buildings. They broadcast the final moments of Administrator Tae-woo, who had died protecting his people. Your leaders told you that humans were weak and cowardly. Captain Do-hyun's voice echoed across Vorthak Prime. They told you we could not fight back. But they never told you what we chose not to do while we served you faithfully for 7 years. Human ships released thousands of small probes that descended toward the planet's surface. The probes did not carry weapons. They carried medical supplies, food, and water purification systems for the Vorthak civilians who were suffering from the infrastructure collapse. We could have poisoned your water supplies with lethal toxins instead of mild pathogens, Do-hyun continued. We could have destroyed your cities with orbital bombardment. We could have done to you exactly what you did to New Incheon. On the planet's surface, Vorthak civilians watched human supply drops falling from the sky. Many had been sick for weeks from the biological weapons, but the human supplies included medicine that would cure them. We chose mercy instead of vengeance, Do-hyun's transmission concluded. Remember that choice when you decide how to treat other species in the future. Engineer Yoonbi had infiltrated the Nexari Central Command on their homeworld. Her mission was not sabotage but data extraction. For weeks she had worked as a maintenance technician while secretly accessing their most classified files. The data she found was worse than anyone had imagined. The Nexari had detailed plans for the systematic extermination of 43 species, including humanity. They had calculated how long it would take to strip the resources from each conquered world before moving on to the next target. Yoonbi activated every communication system in the Nexari capital and began broadcasting the classified files across the galaxy. Species that had thought themselves safe under council protection discovered they were scheduled for extinction within the next 50 years. Citizens of the galaxy, Yoonbi's voice carried through space to every inhabited world. These are the true plans of your rulers. You were never members of a galactic community. You were items on a list, waiting your turn to be consumed. The broadcasts caused panic across dozens of worlds. Species that had served the Council faithfully for centuries realized they had been supporting their own future murderers. Military units began deserting. Entire planetary governments declared independence. Dr. Minho revealed the most shocking truth of all from his laboratory on Titan. In a galaxy-wide transmission, he explained how human biological weapons had been developed. 7 years ago, we began studying alien biology for peaceful purposes. Dr. Minho's image appeared on screens throughout known space. We wanted to understand how to help different species work together. Instead, we discovered something terrible. He displayed genetic analyses that showed the biological weapons currently affecting Vorthak and Nexari military forces. The weapons were designed to cause temporary illness, nothing more. But we also developed other weapons, Dr. Minho continued. Weapons that could have eliminated every Vorthak within 60 days. Pathogens that could have sterilized every Nexari world. Viruses that could have wiped out the leadership of every council species. The galaxy fell silent as Dr. Minho explained the true scope of human preparation. These weapons have been in your food supplies, your water systems, and your air recyclers. For 3 years, they are dormant, waiting for activation codes that we chose never to send. We could have ended this war before it began by simply pressing a button. He paused, letting the implications sink in across the galaxy. We had the power to commit genocide against every species that oppressed us. We chose not to use that power. But every leader who ordered attacks on human civilians should ask themselves this question. If we were willing to show mercy to those who murdered our children, what will we do to those who threaten us now? Council leader Thexmore attempted to rally the remaining council forces, but discovered that most species had already switched sides. The oppressed had found their voice, and their protector, General Vakthul, the architect of the new Incheon massacre, made one final attempt to strike back at humanity. He gathered the few ships still under his command and launched an attack on the human research station at Proxima Centauri. But human forces were waiting for him. Ghost ships materialized around his fleet, not to destroy it, but to capture it. General Vakthul found himself a prisoner aboard Captain Do-hyun's flagship. "Why do you not kill me?" General Vakthul asked during his interrogation. "I ordered the death of your children." Captain Do-hyun looked at the alien commander who had caused so much suffering. "Because we are not you. We are better than you." Fleet Admiral Hajin issued the final ultimatum from the command ship Righteous Fury. The message was broadcast to every remaining council stronghold. To the leaders of the former Galactic Council, you have seen what happens when humanity stops choosing peace. Your fleets are stranded. Your supply lines are broken. Your subject species have abandoned you. Your own people are questioning why they followed leaders who planned genocide. The Admiral paused, his voice carrying the weight of 7 years of careful planning and righteous anger. You have one choice remaining. Surrender now and face trial for your crimes. Continue to resist and discover what weapons we chose not to use while we were showing you mercy. Across the galaxy, the former powers of the Council faced a terrible truth. They had created their own destruction by mistaking human kindness for weakness. The species they had planned to exterminate had been capable of exterminating them instead, and humanity had chosen mercy again and again, even when mercy seemed impossible. The age of Council tyranny was ending. A new age was about to begin. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Council, the galaxy had learned to live without fear. The transformation had not come through conquest, but through choice. Species after species had voted to abandon the old ways of oppression and join the Terran Alliance. Fleet Admiral Hajin stood before the Assembly in New Geneva, the diplomatic capital built on the ruins of the old council system. Representatives from over 200 species filled the Great Hall, but this time every voice counted equally regardless of military power or economic strength. "Citizens of the galaxy," Admiral Hajin began, his voice carrying to every corner of known space through the new communication networks. 5 years ago, humanity sought peace and was given war. We sought friendship and were given slavery. We sought cooperation and were given exploitation. The hall was completely silent. Many of the representatives had fought against humanity during the rebellion. Others had joined the human cause after seeing the evidence of council crimes. All of them understood they were witnessing history. Today we offer what we always wanted to offer: true partnership between equals, justice for the oppressed, protection for the weak, and mercy for those who choose to change. The former power structures had crumbled completely. General Vakthul faced war crimes tribunals for the new Incheon massacre, but even his trial had become a symbol of the new order's commitment to justice over vengeance. Ambassador Jiwon served as the chief prosecutor in Vakthul's trial. When Samar, the verdict was announced, the general asked her the question that had haunted him since his capture. "Why did you not simply exterminate us when you had the power to do so?" Jiwon looked at the alien commander who had ordered the deaths of 400,000 humans. Her answer would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. "Because we are not you. We are better than you. And we proved it by showing mercy to those who showed us none." General Vakthul was sentenced to life imprisonment, but his cell included medical care, education materials, and regular visits from counselors who tried to help him understand why his actions had been wrong. Even in punishment, humanity chose rehabilitation over revenge. Engineer Yunbi had become the director of Galactic Infrastructure Renewal. Her work now focused on building systems that could not be used for oppression. Power grids were decentralized, so no single authority could control them. Communication networks were open and transparent. Transportation systems served all species equally. Standing in the reconstructed city of New Incheon, Yunbi watched children from dozens of different species playing together in parks built on the sites where buildings had once burned. A memorial wall listed the names of those who had died, but the city itself looked toward the future instead of dwelling on the past. Mama Yunbi, called young Zara, a Zalani child who had been rescued from Nexari slave camps. Will you help me with my engineering homework? Yunbi smiled and knelt beside the child. Zara was studying the same subjects that had once been forbidden to her species under council rule. Now she dreamed of becoming a starship designer. Of course, Yunbi replied. What are you working on? I want to build ships that can help people, instead of hurt them, Zara said seriously. Yunbi felt tears in her eyes. This was why humanity had chosen mercy over vengeance. This was why they had built something better, instead of simply destroying what came before. Captain Do-hyun commanded the new peacekeeping fleet, composed of ships from multiple species but following human tactical doctrines. The fleet's mission was not conquest, but protection. They responded to natural disasters, defended trade routes from actual pirates, and mediated disputes between species. His flagship, the New Incheon Memorial, had become a symbol of hope rather than revenge. The ship carried medical supplies, disaster relief equipment, and diplomatic facilities. The names of massacre victims were still painted on its hull, but now they served as a reminder of the cost of hatred rather than a call for vengeance. Captain, reported Communications Officer Hana, we are receiving a distress call from the Keth system. A solar flare has damaged their planetary shields. Set course immediately, Do-hyun ordered. Deploy all medical and engineering teams upon arrival. The Keth system was the former stronghold of the Vorthak Empire. 5 years earlier, human ships had surrounded their worlds as enemies. Now they raced to save those same worlds from natural disaster. Dr. Minho had transformed his research from weapons development to medical advancement. His laboratories now worked to cure diseases that had plagued various species for centuries. The biological weapons research was declassified and shared as both a warning and a promise. This is what we chose not to use, Dr. Minho explained to a class of interspecies medical students. We developed the knowledge to destroy our enemies, then use that same knowledge to heal them instead. His students included young Vorthak, Nexari, and dozens of other species. They studied the genetic modifications that could have killed their people, learning how those same techniques could cure genetic diseases and extend lifespans. Why did humans choose healing over harming? Asked one student, a young Nexari named Kelwin. Dr. Minho considered the question carefully. Because destruction is easy. Any species can learn to kill. But creation, healing, and forgiveness require true strength. We chose to be strong. The transformation of galactic civilization had not been without challenges. Some species struggled to abandon centuries of hierarchical thinking. Others found it difficult to trust former enemies. But slowly, cooperation replaced competition as the driving force of interspecies relations. Ambassador Ji-won addressed these challenges at the 5th anniversary celebration of the Terran Alliance. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to hear her speak about the lessons learned from humanity's rise to galactic leadership. We did not seek to rule the galaxy, Ji-won explained. We sought to free it from rulers who governed through fear. The greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but convincing them to become your friends. She gestured toward the assembly, where former council species sat alongside the worlds they had once oppressed. Look around this hall. 5 years ago, these species were masters and slaves, predators and prey. Today, they are partners working toward common goals. This transformation was not achieved through superior firepower or advanced technology. It was achieved through the simple act of choosing mercy when vengeance would have been easier. The economic foundations of the galaxy had also been rebuilt on principles of cooperation rather than exploitation. Trade agreements ensured fair compensation for all parties. Resource extraction was managed sustainably. No species was forced to give tribute to more powerful neighbors. Engineer Yunbi had designed new mining operations that returned profits to the worlds where resources were extracted, instead of shipping everything to distant imperial capitals. Former slave species now owned their own industries and controlled their own destinies. The old system concentrated wealth and power among a few species, Yunbi explained to a gathering of economic planners. The new system distributes both wealth and power based on contribution and need, rather than military strength. The results spoke for themselves. Poverty had decreased dramatically across the galaxy. Conflicts between species had become rare. Scientific advancement accelerated as researchers shared knowledge instead of hoarding secrets. But perhaps the most important change was in how different species viewed each other. The fear and hatred that had dominated galactic relations for millennia was slowly being replaced by understanding and respect. Young beings across the galaxy grew up learning that diversity was strength rather than weakness. They studied the histories of different species not to identify enemies, but to appreciate the unique contributions each civilization could make to the galactic community. As Fleet Admiral Hajin prepared to retire from military service and enter diplomatic work, he reflected on the journey that had brought the galaxy to this point. The path from the New Incheon massacre to the Terran Alliance had been difficult and sometimes painful, but it had led to something unprecedented in galactic history. When we first made contact with galactic civilization 7 years ago, we hoped to find friends among the stars, Admiral Hajin said in his farewell address. Instead, we found tyrants and slaves. Today, we have helped create what we always hoped to find, a galaxy where different species can live together in peace. The final scene of the Great Transformation took place in a small park on New Incheon. Engineer Yunbi sat on a bench watching children from dozens of species playing together. Among them was Minji, not her own daughter who had died in the bombardment, but a young human girl named after those who were lost. "Grandma Yunbi," young Minji called, running over with her friends from school. "Tell us the story about why humans are so respected in the galaxy." Yunbi looked at the group of children, their faces representing the diversity that now defined galactic civilization. Humans, Vorthak, Nixari, Zelani, and dozens of other species all learning and playing together. We are respected because we showed the galaxy that true strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies, Yunbi said gently. True strength is the wisdom to turn your enemies into friends. The galaxy learned that lesson too late to avoid the storm of war, but just in time to build something better from the